very.
Tell me about it.
We're like, I was in like a company, and it wasn't like a make you feel better, it's like you really want.
He was, yeah, my high school.
Like our schools, our cities are really like, most people are below or at poverty line, you know, like Hispanic, like.
Where are you from?
You usually in New Jersey? Yep. By like Newark, Massachusetts. So a lot of people don't have money, so our school gets more funding. So we got funding for like dance and arts and things like that, and those are the inclusive things. And with all that, it's been like really great in fostering like a very accepting and inclusive environment, which you wouldn't expect from very like jaded, times like angry and like kids with that attitude, like, you know, like there's a lot of like fights and stuff like that in school, but in terms of like acceptance of students, there's not like bullying like that.
That's interesting. I mean, the research kind of says the last time I looked, which wasn't like last week, so we'd have to I'd have to look at it again, is that inclusion has some positive effects generally on social, like just what you're talking about, like pro-social skills. For all kids, inclusion helps develop pro-social skills. Whether you're like the valedictorian or the kid that's like kind of having a rough time at school, which goes back to Jill. Only reason this person came was to see somebody smile, right? So pro-social skills, we know inclusion works for. In terms of the academic skills, the research is a little less clear, but the last time I looked, what it seemed to say is it does, when it's done well, teachers learn a variety of teaching tools to teach so that they can reach more kids. So that inclusion seems to help most those kids that are in the kind of at-risk range, right? So kids that might be in special education, might not be in special education, those kids that kind of are, you know, because nothing is a solid, straight line, no human characteristic, right? You can go a little bit this way, a little bit that way. For kids that are kind of in that at-risk, maybe special education, maybe not, inclusion seems to help them by giving their teachers more tools to work with. That's what it seems to happen. Have not read anything that I have not read anything that there's a negative impact for inclusion on anything. I will tell you that I worry a little bit because there's so much pressure on teachers right now. There's an ungodly amount of pressure on teachers right now. So good on tests, it just is. Test scores, what you're in, that every student you have will be tracked forever, and that, you know, if they're not doing well and they were your student once, that will be known, and if your percentages are off, that, you know, you could be called on the tail for it. So I know, for example, Jill and I are having like this huge kind of, well, I don't know, Jill's probably more of a 2 on this than I am. I'm more of a 4 on this. So our town that I work in, Portsmouth, is part of this region. Portsmouth just made a vote, their school committee just made a vote that they were pulling out of the region. Okay? Yeah, so one of their stated reasons was because the test scores, they did not feel the test scores of children that had IEPs were moving quickly enough. They did not feel that, so you think
So what does moving out of the region mean?
They're going to provide their own special education. Right. So they provided.
You guys won't be part of it?
We don't know yet. We have no idea what's going to happen.
Wow.
Like, so we don't know. Well, Jill, I think will have a job. I don't know if I will or not. But the whole point of it is these decisions were made on test scores, and when you have a teacher that livelihood literally depends on the test scores of those kids in front of that teacher, might they get a little more frustrated with somebody that won't stop talking about dinosaurs, maybe? May that be an issue for, you know, it might, you know, so I worry about, although the research is good on inclusion, I mean, it is, I worry a little bit about what the pressure on the education system is, how that's going to play out. You know, so did that answer?
So did somebody, you had your hand up in your school?
Oh yeah, I have a question, but if someone had a question related to inclusion, mine's a little tangential.
Rachel, you said some people had a negative.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Natalie.
It was you, right?
Yeah, so the town I grew up in was a small mountain town. It was very like Sharky football, hello kind of deal. There was not like kids with special needs and kids with autism were very much segregated and stigmatized and bullied, and they like tried to put a kid on the football team and it was
It didn't
He
work.
was, well, he was low functioning, and he was a joke, and he didn't realize, but like things got bad. I think they eventually ended up pulling him out, and I guess I was wondering. I mean, I didn't have a specific question, but something that came up was I was wondering if a couple things. If there are any kind of points you noticed at which they stopped being just like the kids who acted that way and started being like, there's different and
I think that it depends on, like I said, on a variety of factors.
Mhm.
And as a person who is a liaison between the student who was just put on a football team, like I would probably go about that differently so I could almost guarantee success.
Yeah.
Where we have students that play in the marching band
Mhm.
at one of the high schools, and they're very limited. So
Yeah.
their inclusion piece is the drum, of course, typically, because it's just got one motion. So they don't march because they can't keep up the pace, and we're not going to set them up or the band to fail. And so we say, okay, for them to be successful, they're going to go to practice in class where they have other students. It's a nice sensory, stimulation piece for them. It's a skill that they're leaving with. Our high school, they're leaving with being able to play the drum, even though it's a modified play. Like I don't know their beat counting at all. And then, for one of the students, it was just about wearing the uniform. I mean, it was just about wearing the uniform. And in fact, when he was a senior, his father at his meeting said he made the hat out of like this, like all this. He said, I came in one day and he came downstairs with an apron on and something else, and that's all he wanted was the uniform. He didn't really want to march with the band. He just wanted the uniform. So once we got him the uniform, he was included. So he went to practice. He didn't go to any, parades, because it's too hard. So I just think it's so much in terms of, and that's why I'm a firm believer in IEP, individual education plan. So that could have been successful if he had gone in and just hiked the ball and then been done with it.
It sounds like they were no support. Again, it's that culture piece.
But I think that's a really huge piece of it, is like, if it's just kind of a token gesture,
Yeah.
right? Then I don't know that I mean, we know what does make, we do know some of the things that help this happen well. It has to be supported by the culture of the adults. The adults are the role models for how the kids will respond. We know that. We also know that there are a couple things. The kids have to make a contribution that's considered valuable or at least not harmful. So that's what Jill's getting to. So you can't, like if people worry about what's gonna happen, like, oh, we're gonna lose the game, some kids will be able to be like, oh yeah, okay, but, so this is a good example. So you have to kind of figure if the best is that the child that you're included in some way makes a valuable contribution to the process. And that's really when you're gonna get the most success with inclusion. So for example, my other son, we live in Jamestown, they do a great job with this, a great job with including kids. People always move to Jamestown when they have kids that are on the spectrum because they just do a phenomenal job, right? And it starts in pre-K. They have, and it's just, this is it, this is who this kid is. And so for the kid that's special interest is counting, he counts everything down for the class, for how many days till the end of the school year. I mean, it's always, and people like him counting it down. You ask him, how many days till the end of school? 72. I mean, he can tell you without thinking. And like they found a way for his special interest to be valued by the other students. And it really kind of is, being my son. So then they have this other kid who can make really good car sounds. And I know this just sounds like a really kind of weird little special interest, but that's what they use as kind of their rallying cry for their sports team, is him doing the sports dance. Like he gets the teams revved up,
Yeah.
And so my son being my son is like going, well, Camp skill I think has a little bit more, I think he can use that a little bit more for a job. We really have to think about Max's skill. How are we going to help him? But those are things that the school found ways that their
Radio, yeah.
actual skills and their interests were used in a way that was meaningful. It wasn't just like this add-on thing, and I do think that's key, and then the adult kind of attitude is key.
Yeah, and I was in a meeting where a student who goes to Meals on Wheels, but all he likes is the knocking on the door and the door opening. So we were trying
That's
to
actually
think, well,
pretty-
what he's gonna do. And so we
That's
just
cool.
decided in the high school, he's gonna start delivering mail to the teachers. Because they all get all this junk mail, myself included, like all these catalogs, you know, blah, blah. So that's a way to use his strength, which is all he wants to see. And then who was over here opening and closing the door, like all he wants is that door to open. So that was, you know, but we were all brainstorming, like what could we do that can help him, can help our community, teachers.
That's meaningful.
That's meaningful, like we don't want him just go around and open doors randomly. Yeah. Right,
Exactly.
yeah, that was good.
Did you have another question, Tina?
Yeah, my other question relates a little bit less to inclusion and more, you said that there are differences in kind of acceptance level in your various places that you work. And I was wondering if, aside from academics and whatnot, what kind of reflection that had on like the happiness of the students? I guess I don't have a whole lot of experience with people on the lower end of the spectrum, but I worked with kids with Asperger's in high school, and a lot of them would come into the behavior group and, you know, at the beginning, like not talk, not know anybody, didn't, you know, had experienced this bullying and all these things. And then eventually when they got like, sometimes it took a really long time for them to be comfortable with people, but they would, you know, like eventually go on a play date with another of the kids in the group. And the difference it made for them to have one person they could call a friend. And like even then, there, you know, we had to start dealing with like the friend drama of like he said he would hang out and then he couldn't. But then, like in a sense, it was great that they had that drama because it meant that they had a friend and it meant that they were getting that experience. And I was just wondering, I guess, if you see a difference in that.
In terms of data and, you know, research-based evidence, it's hard to tell because what people are looking at, as Sue said, is test scores, but unfortunately, I think that the happiness level to me is how many people want to be